Marvel Rivals' newest season is already underway and introduces characters from both the mutant and mystic sides of the Marvel Universe. But the more cosmic corner of the Marvel Universe is still lacking a bit behind. If you wanted to bring in a true galactic powerhouse, there are a couple of options. Captain Marvel or Silver Surfer come to mind, but if we really want somebody that can bring a unique kit to Marvel Rivals, I'd look to Nova. Some of you might be asking, who's Nova? But I'd like to answer that question with a different question. Much like in my Ghost Rider video, Nova is a mantle, and although Richard Ryder, the original Nova, is a bit more well known, Sam Alexander still has a pretty decent shot at ripping the core in this game, especially since Rivals has already shown that they are willing to go with some more unexpected picks to represent these characters. Looking at you, Iron Fist. To be completely transparent, I would love for the Nova in this game to be Sam Alexander, but I know that there are some hardcore Dick Riders, so to please everyone, I'm going to go over both of their backstories, and I'll leave it up to you guys on who you think should be the Nova in Marvel Rivals. Created by Marv Wolfman and John Buscema, Richard "Rich" Ryder made his comic book debut in Nova #1, 1976. After inheriting the Nova Corps helmet from the dying Roman Day, insecure teenager Richard Ryder was infused with the power of the Nova Force, sourced from the galactic peacekeeping body known as the Nova Corps, based out of the planet Xandar. After working with a slightly restored Nova Corps and alongside the first iteration of the New Warriors, Nova is one of those rare characters where we actually see him maintain his character development throughout his comic book history. Since his debut, he has grown into a much more mature figure, especially so during the Annihilation War storyline, and at one point even becoming the sole wielder of the Nova Force and merging with the Xandarian world mind. Ryder has become such a strong presence in the cosmic side of Marvel that his absence is even noticeable. During his stint staying behind in the Cancerverse, the title of Nova was left open for 3 whole years, before being filled by Sam Alexander. Created by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, Sam debuted in Nova #1, 2013, as the new Human Rocket. This being the 5th volume of Nova, they kinda had to go over a whole new origin story for this whole new character. But, similar to Ryder, Sam received his powers as a teenager after putting on his father's old Nova helmet. Then, after waking up in a hospital, being greeted by Gamora and Rocket Raccoon, Sam decided to take to trading and took off to space, searching for both his father and the rest of the Nova Corps. After returning from the Cancerverse, Rich took on a mentorship role with Sam, and the two have both made appearances as members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Champions, and especially the New Warriors. They are both equally deserving of a spot in Marvel Rivals. Plus, Richard's in Cosmic Invasion, and I think it's Sam's turn. Anyway, that's my pitch. Let me know who you think should be Nova Prime. If I want to make a non-character specific version of Nova, the kit should focus around things that they both share, like the name Human Rocket. With a nickname like that, this character should hit fast, and they should hit hard. The duelist role seems to be the natural fit. Besides, it's also the most realistic one. They release 80 duelists a year, so obviously everyone's going to be a duelist. Moving on to the base stats, the core tenets for this hero fantasy are hitting hard, hitting first, and hitting fast. So keeping that in mind, as a high mobility character, we don't want him to be too bulky. So we're going to go with 250 health and 6 meters a second movement speed. Oh, you're right, I said high mobility. Sorry, 12 meters a second flying speed. As a hybrid movement character, we don't want these controls to get too out of, well, control. So the best way to do that is just by letting the player turn it off whenever they want. I'll go into more detail on it later, but for now just know he can stop flying on command. One of the coolest things about all these new team-ups is that some of these characters' base attacks and abilities are completely changed, which means that some of the abilities that I designed got a whole lot easier to represent. For example, Nova Force Pulse is one of them. In my head, this attack was basically a hit scan version of Storm's Windblades, so her Thor team-up that transforms her Windblades into a hit scan attack is pretty much exactly what I had in mind. Plus it deals pretty similar damage to what I was thinking too. My name is Accelerate, and I am addicted to quick melees. I was sober for 5 videos, but unfortunately today, I relapsed. Xandarian Beatdown is an attack where Nova kicks out beneath him and manages to knock down other flyers if you yourself are flying. Establishing a bit of aerial hierarchy, this attack is pretty specifically detailed to being airborne, but if you're not, it still deals the normal quick melee damage that other heroes have. First up for the actual abilities is Atmospheric Afterimage. As a little nod to the rest of the core, especially the core that we do end up seeing in the MCU, Nova will dash twice, leaving behind energy force fields that both block damage and block enemy movement, guiding his targets to where he wants them to go, rather than where they want to go. As more of a setup option than anything else, this is an isolation tool that allows Nova to control where he wants the fight to be. Whether it's separating a squishy from the rest of their team, or denying escape routes from enemy flankers, this ability can easily be capitalized on by a coordinated team, or even just a very opportunistic one. When Richard Ryder merged with the Xandarian world mind, he gained the knowledge of thousands of generations of native Xandarians. In tandem with the Nova Force's power to naturally regenerate its hosts, some form of self-healing would work pretty well here. I was originally thinking something in line with Iron Fist's meditation, but I want a little bit of a spin on it. Rather than healing to full health, Nova will slowly rise to the air and restore a small amount of missing health and reduce the cooldown of specific abilities. During this fight, he will also be completely invincible, providing some added utility if you do end up starting this ability in the wrong spot. In a similar vein to Iron Fist, I imagine this ability provides just enough healing at just enough consistency that he won't need any additional regenerative shields for his health. The Human Rocket passive is the glue of Nova's kit, and I really think holds it all together. Rather than giving him a normal flight, I wanted it to feel special, and more special than just moving faster than the others. In order to start this flight, it'll take more than just jumping to get off the ground. But once Nova is airborne, like after jumping off of a building or utilizing World Mind Regeneration, he can hold space to become an unstoppable flying human rocket. Although this does disable Nova Force Pulse, it will damage any nearby enemy on contact. Unlike other temporary flying abilities, this doesn't end. Theoretically, you could play the entire game in the human rocket state if you played absolutely perfectly. But the moment your thumb does slip off the spacebar, it feels pretty punishing. Going from complete CC immunity and 12 meters a second to standing there in the middle of the enemy team is quite scary. But that's what World Mind Regeneration is for, to get you out of those sticky situations if you do wind up in the middle of the enemy Punisher ult. While the human rocket state does unfortunately disable the primary fire, it does turn on this specific ability, Ryder's Roll. In addition to Sam's ties to the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ryder has also spent a lot of time with the team, particularly Star-Lord while he was in the Cancerverse. With those inspirations in mind, I wanted to do something similar to Star-Lord's Stellar Dodge. I didn't want it to grant iframes due to him already being CC immune during this flight, but I do think allowing faster turns on the dime and a tiny bit of burst damage is just enough of a cherry on top. Since I'm letting you guys choose which Nova's in the game, I thought I'd let the game give you the same choice. Nova's first team up is with Rocket Raccoon. Guardian Bootcamp retrains Nova and re-enables his primary fire while in the human rocket state. The enhanced version of the team up provides you a bit of scouting utility, allowing the attack to bounce off of terrain, to track nearby enemies, and hit them, dealing a reduced amount of damage. If that last team up was for Sam and allowed him to increase his ranged damage capabilities, then Richard should be just as impactful. In his 4th ever appearance, Ryder was put to battle against the God of Thunder himself. After realizing he was, quote, corrupted by the corruptor, very original, Thor promised Nova his eternal friendship. So this team up, Awakening Force, provides Nova with a similar lightning aura to Thor's Awakened state, dealing AoE damage without actually having to make direct contact. While enhanced, Human Rocket State also grants a damage reduction, increasing Nova's in-flight survivability. One thing both Sam and Richard share in common is their love of fun, and nothing is more fun than launching yourself at top speeds towards an enemy. Supernova Prime will rocket towards an area and begin bouncing in between enemies in range, dealing significant damage and applying blind. Hitting an enemy will also grant Nova a small amount of lasting bonus health, Back in June of this year, Nova actually celebrated his 50th anniversary by getting his book cancelled. Regardless, there's still 50 years worth of comic book history for you to find a good costume from. My favorite look of Nova personally is the Annihilation War look. I just love the spiky pauldrons, and that color of blue is just beautiful. The art that you've been looking at this entire video was drawn by Santiago Cuervo, which I will link on Instagram once again. It looks to be inspired by the most recent book that I was just talking about, Nova Centurion. Even if they don't go with this beautiful piece of art, there's not really any look that you can go wrong with, except for that really ugly Kid Nova costume. While I ultimately believe that when Marvel Rivals does eventually add Nova to the game, that they will just pick either Richard Ryder or Sam Alexander, I have to admit, playing this game, bouncing between both of them for their different inspirations of combat and abilities was actually quite fun, and I think shows up a lot in this kit. The new team-up system, forcing you into these kind of two different playstyles, has actually been a pretty good thing for my own design choice. It allows me to do things like completely separate this character's gameplay identity. If you go with Sam's team-up, you become a little bit more of a ranged threat, whereas Richard will get in your face and deal a lot more damage than you expect otherwise. Let me know your thoughts on this Nova design, and let me know who you think should be the Nova in the game. As always, if you want to support me even more than just liking or subscribing, consider becoming a YouTube member. You get a bunch of cool benefits, and you get a part of these shoutouts at the end of the video. As always, thank you so much, but not as always, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay tuned.